Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Dizzy Plays Titan Souls. This is a new game. It came out just about a week ago now. It's currently available on Steam and the PlayStation Network for about £11, $15, the original equivalent, depending on which country you're from. And just to let you guys know, I'm currently playing on the Steam version myself. This is an action-adventure game developed by the English game studio Acid Nerve, which, as far as I'm aware, this is actually their very first commercial debut. I haven't actually heard or seen anything from them in the past. I might be wrong, absolutely wrong about that, but as far as I'm aware, this is their very first release. It's also published by Devolver Digital, which is one of my favourite video game publishers. Absolutely love them. They made amazing titles like Hotline Miami 1 and 2, Broforce, Shadow Warrior. What else have they made? I think they made Serious Sam games as well, which I absolutely love those games. It's a bunch of other awesome titles. I absolutely love everything that comes out of Devolver Digital. Essentially this had a demo. It came out a few weeks ago. I haven't played it myself. I've just played the main game. But I know it was originally conceptualized from a Ludum Dare Game Jam game, which is pretty much the first iteration of Titan Souls. Eventually made into a full commercial release, which is it's what we're playing now. We're about to jump into. Let's jump into it. That's right. Just to be honest with you guys, it's not really a completely blind playthrough of this game. I have played the first area, which covers about the first 3 or 4 bosses. It takes about half an hour, and that's essentially what I'll be covering in the first episode. But sort of the general format of the series, kind of what I'm going for, is to essentially make the first episode sort of my initial thoughts, kind of a general analysis of the game, just to showcase all the main elements of the game, just to kind of show you guys sort of like the core mechanics of the game, sort of the aesthetics and the sound design, the music, boss designs, all that kind of stuff, just to show you guys whether or not this will be your kind of game or whether you want to purchase it for yourself. With all that said and done, let's jump into Titan Souls. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, in the very first area of Titan Souls. So yeah, as you saw in that little animation at the beginning, that little introduction, it kind of gives you a general idea what the basic premise of this game actually is. And it basically boils down to 3 elements. Essentially, you're one guy, you have 1 bow and 1 arrow, and that is literally all you have in terms of your arsenal. And it's a very basically designed game because of that. And I'll kind of show you the basic mechanics before we get into the game. So I'm currently playing with an Xbox 360 controller, and literally as soon as you boot up the game, it kind of recommends that you do play with a controller. And I can kind of see why, because with the keyboard controls, it's very hard to aim into very specific areas. But using the directional stick on the controller, you have a very wide arc in which you can shoot your arrow. And like I said, you only have the 1 arrow, so as soon as you shoot it, that's your arrow gone, and you have no more attacks. So you're literally defenseless at this point. And the only way you can attack is if you go back to pick up the arrow manually. And as soon as you shoot again, if you can also use kind of a telekinesis ability. If you hold down the attack button, it kind of charges towards you like that, which is a very interesting and helpful mechanic. And I'll kind of show you why as soon as we get into the boss battles. Kind of a couple comparisons I can kind of bring from this game that remind me a lot of other games. Shadow of the Colossus is the first one, instantly. Because this game, essentially, there are no normal enemies at all. It's all boss designs. It's all basically boss battles and nothing else. As soon as you defeat one boss, you instantly go to another one. There's no sort of level designs. There's no grinding or progression systems or anything like that. It's literally just boss battles. And that's kind of how Shadow of the Colossus did it. Essentially, you defeat one at a time until you've defeated all of them. And that's pretty much what you have to do here. As well as the aesthetics, the architecture of the world really reminds me of Shadow of the Colossus. You're kind of like this little guy in a very large world, much bigger than yourself. By the way, this is a sort of save point here. As soon as you die, you'll instantly be respawned as soon as you sort of walk over this. And it kind of gives you a general idea of how many bosses are in the area, the area we're in. So as you can see, there are like 4 little circles here. Every time you defeat a boss, it'll light up. And as soon as all 4 are lit up, you can go to the next area. So yeah, basically, I just want to kind of bring up my initial thoughts when I started up the game. So as you can see, the aesthetics of this game and the music as well are absolutely gorgeous. I absolutely love the way this game looks. It's such a beautifully like designed 2D pixel art game. So you can see they put so much love into it in terms of like how much detail there is. Like if you look, like you see all the little blades of grass are swaying. There's little bits of wind like blowing across the land. You can see like the little lines across the wall where the water is. It's sort of lapping against the walls, so it kind of gives you a sort of feel as to how big the architecture actually is. It's such a beautiful game in my opinion. And it really surprised me when I started this game up, because the one word I kind of heard thrown around the indie community when this game first came out was minimalistic. And as soon as I started up the game, I thought it doesn't really have a minimalistic style. It's very detailed, and it seems like there's a lot going on. And it's only until I started playing the game until I realized, no, it's actually the core mechanics that are very minimalistic. And I'll kind of show you how, why and how as soon as we go into this first boss. I'm kind of thinking of what boss to start first, and I think I'll do this one. It's kind of the first door you encounter, and it's kind of basically the most basic boss you fight in this game. So just a quick little note, just before we enter this boss battle here, I just wanted to quickly mention something. So, considering this is an action-adventure game, and like most action-adventure games, you kind of expect to walk into a temple and kind of instantly your mind thinks, okay, so there must be like, you know, like multiple floors, there must be like a giant labyrinth, right? There must be like a plethora of enemies you have to fight, and you have to grind them all in order to get like bigger levels. There's probably a bunch of items and abilities you have to find, get your character stronger and stronger. You know, there's probably a bunch of locked doors, and you have to find the keys in order to unlock the doors, in order to get, you know, further into the dungeon. There's probably a few sub-bosses along the way, a bunch of stuff like that. With Titan Souls, not so much. You literally go into the first, you know, level of the dungeon, and straight up boss. This is the first thing you encounter as soon as you enter any temple, is just this. And you're like, holy crap, that is a giant enemy. And yeah, the ballsy thing that the Acid Nerve really did making their very first game is like essentially taking out all the basic, like boiling down all the basic elements of like, you know, having a dungeon and hours of content, and taking all that and just basically focusing on boss battles. And in my opinion, I think they've done it really well. And I'll yeah, let's start this boss battle. I'll kind of show you how it works. So with every boss battle, they'll always have sort of an apparent weakness to them, like a sort of Achilles heel that you have to sort of. It's kind of apparent at first, but you have to reveal it. So with this guy, you can obviously see like it has that giant heart, and you have to strike him with the, you know, the one attack that you have. And every time you attack him, he's going to get a little, you know, like smaller and smaller, but he's also going to split into multiple parts. And every time he splits, it's going to get a lot quicker. Also, as you saw there, I was on the right path when I was shooting the arrow there, but he jumped at the last second, and the arrow kind of went underneath him. So you have to time it like that. You have to make sure he's on the ground before you do that. And obviously you see, like, I've just shot my arrow, I'm out of abilities, I can't shoot him. So that telekinesis ability comes very much in handy, like that. Like, it comes shooting right towards you, and you get it right back. And sometimes the enemy will be right in the way of the arrow, and you can actually, you know, use your telekinesis, bring it back, and it'll actually hit him along the way. So it's almost revealed now. Another thing with this boss is if you hit, you know that every time he pounds on the ground, he kind of leaves a sort of slime trail behind him. If you head into that slime, he basically is going to give you kind of a slowdown effect, and that's kind of, you know, that's the last thing you want in a boss like this, especially when the parts are getting, you know, smaller and smaller. And when they get smaller, they actually get quicker and quicker and cover a lot more ground. See, there's one tiny one there that's like really quick now. You really have to be careful. You see, now they're really starting to group up on me, so we have to do this nice and quick. And that final weakness of his, it's finally out of like all the slime. It's just the heart now. As soon as we attack that, that's him done. Let's see if we can get that one last attack in there. Oh, that was really close. Try not to get into the slime, because we do not want to get slowed down here. We want to always be on the move. That's one of the key essential things. Nice little shot here. Oh god, it's so close. I'm so bad at aiming. Right, let's try and get a little bit closer here. Let's take our time with this. Right, this is perfect. Come on, how can I miss this? Oh god, he jumped at the last second. No, I do not want to be in this boss battle any longer than necessary. Come on. Yes, there we go. Finally. Right. And there's the kind of slowdown effect there, just to show you, as soon as you go into the sort of slime, I think another boss kind of has that sort of ability. But yeah, that is the first boss of Titan Souls. Nice and simple, yet at the same time, it kind of has that sort of mechanic of, you know, like splitting into smaller and smaller parts, and the boss battle actually gets more difficult as you go along. I really like that. It's a really good first boss in my opinion. So let's retrieve our arrow and absorb the Titan Souls. And this is, again, this is kind of another comparison to Shadow of the Colossus. Every time you defeat a Colossi in that game, you essentially absorb its like life essence, like its, you know, its soul. Very similar to this, as you can see here. It's kind of an overarching theme of this game, much like Shadow of the Colossus. Another comparison as well. I mean, that's the thing. Like, this game does have a lot of comparisons, and not to like bring the game down in any way because of that. You know, it's a perfectly good game all on its own, but it does share a lot of resemblances. Another resemblance to it is essentially you never see the boss attack you first. You always do the initial attack. Like, he'll basically just hop around the room, you know, minding his own business, you know, and then some douchebag with a bow and arrow comes around and, like, murders him, pierces his heart, you know. So you never actually, like, see right here, this guy right here, you know, you can go around and roll and duck into him. He's not going to do a damn thing. He's just, you know, he's just some docile ancient being. But you come around, and you're always the one to do the first attack, and that's when he starts attacking you. Like that, which I find really interesting. It's very similar to how Shadow of the Colossus did things. So this guy, yeah, essentially, as you can see, this level, it's got the same sort of room that the other boss had. Like, you know, it's kind of just a square arena. But for this guy, it's kind of a grid, and he's sort of a cube, so he's going to keep rolling around in a very specific way. And he's got one corner where you can just see his eye there, and every time wherever the eye lands, it's going to shoot a giant laser, regardless of where it's pointing. So it might be like to the side, it might be up, and essentially, you know, obviously, as you can see here, analyzing this boss, you can see its one weakness is its eye. So you have to kind of time the attacks so the eye's pointing towards you, and you have to gain a sort of a window of opportunity in order to actually get this guy. It's a little difficult at first, but eventually you get it. So as you can see here, like every single boss battle, it's always going to be a different experience, a different kind of puzzle that you have to solve. And eventually, obviously, I think we can get him here. 2 seconds. Yeah, there we go. That was some good tactics there. Essentially, being patient and sort of waiting for him to be facing towards you, kind of attack diagonally like that. Because you know the beam's not going to attack you. It's not going to be in your like line of sight, but you're still going to be able to get him that way. So yeah, let's defeat this guy. Get our arrow back. And absorb his souls. Yeah, like I was saying, it does. Because remember, if anyone has played Shadow of the Colossus, like every time you defeat a Colossi, those like black sort of stringy things, like you can never escape them, sort of shoot right into your body, and you know that's you know, like essentially, and then you're teleported out of the dungeon. So yeah, I love just how very similar Shadow of the Colossus, you know, this is to Shadow of the Colossus. It is a very similar game, but at the same time, it has a lot of its own mechanics that's you know, unique to itself. You know, it's it kind of pulls a lot of comparisons to other games, but at the same time, you know, a game all on its own. It's a really good game. I absolutely love it. Let's check out what this third boss is like. I actually forgot what this one's like. Oh, that's right. Okay, so this one is actually the first boss that actually had me stumped for a little while. In order to figure out how to defeat it. Like in order to defeat it, I had no idea how to. You know, so essentially for this guy. He's encased in a block of ice, you can clearly see that. But as you attack him, so you just do like a normal arrow attack like this, it's going to hit him, but it's going to reflect right off him. You think, okay, so that's not really done any damage. You know, for the past 2 boss battles, you know, all you have to do is hit him, and then he's done with, right? For this guy, you can hit him as many times as you want, but you're not actually going to penetrate, you know, that ice and to get to what clearly is the weakness of this boss, which is that giant brain inside. So you see, okay, so you start analysing the level. Every time he lands on one of those switches, it's going to sort of bring up a little flame in the centre of the room. And you think, okay, so a flame, that's going to melt the ice that's encased, and that's going to sort of bring out the weakness, the giant brain. And then you think, okay, so it'll get him to just land on one of the switches, brings up the flame, but then as soon as he comes off the switch, it's like, okay then, so how am I supposed to get him on a switch, but then get him at the centre of the room at the same time? It's impossible, right? Then you think, okay, so then how exactly is this done? And then eventually I figured it out. What you have to do is you have to implement the arrow, kind of in the same way that Zelda does it sometimes, where you have to shoot through the flame, and your arrow, basically, it gets imbued with fire. So I'll try and get him in one of the switches, and I'll kind of line it up with the fire. here and see if I can get him. Oh, there we go. Right, not too difficult. So then after this, you'll sort of kind of bounce around. After you get that block of ice, it's kind of a really easy boss battle. You just have to kind of wait for him to land on the ground and then shoot him like that. Not too difficult. And also, yeah, that's another thing, like another ability. Very similar to the slime. He has that kind of slime trails that kind of give you that slowdown effect. I don't know how many times that'll kind of come up with the boss battles in the future. We'll see. So that is 3 bosses in this first area done. There's actually only 1 more left in this area, and the thing I kind of like about this, I haven't seen anything past this last boss we're about to do now, but as far as this first area goes, this boss actually isn't really in its own temple. It's actually outside in the area itself, and it's kind of designed the exact same way that this area itself is designed, like with like the stone sort of architecture and like the vines growing across. As soon as you see it, it's right here. The last boss of this area. Each one will kind of have its own theme. And as you can see, this guy right here, it's sort of this ancient being, and he's docile, he's not moving at all. Like vines have grown over him, he looks like ancient as hell. And it looks exactly like the area he's in. So it's kind of, I love the way they do it, because it's essentially, it's kind of wrapping up the area you've just like completed by completing like the boss of the area itself. So like all the other bosses, you have to initialize it yourself, so as soon as you shoot him, he's going to awaken. And the first thing you can notice, he's covering his chest up there, and behind the chest you can kind of see a glowy sort of like interior inside, like it's kind of cracked. And the basic, like the golden rule of bosses in any video game is, if it glows, that's what you have to hit. Like that's, for the majority of games, that's always how it goes, and with this it's no different. So you see that like kind of circle, like that kind of like pink circle in the center of his chest. That's what you have to hit, but as you can see, he's covering it up, so every time he switches his hands, he's gonna attack with the other one, but he's gonna kind of leave a sort of half-second window of opportunity to shoot it. So the first time I actually fought this guy, it was very difficult to sort of like time it, because you don't know when he's gonna bring his hand up. You kind of just have to assume he will, but most of the time he won't. It's very difficult, because one of the mechanics of this game is, when you aim, you can't move like this. You can't actually move when you aim. You have to take your time and stand in the same place. But with this guy, he's going to bring his fist down right on top of you, so you have to constantly keep moving. Oh, there we go. That was actually very quick. I had a lot of trouble with this guy the first time, because that window is actually really hard to get through. That was just incredibly lucky on my part, yeah. So there we go, that is the final boss of this area, and we will be able to move on to the next one now that all four bosses of this area are defeated. And there we go. So, essentially we've seen everything we can from this area. In this game, there's not, as far as this first area goes, there's not too many things in terms of like secrets or sort of items and abilities like collectibles you can find across the world. It's kind of a very empty sort of game. It just has, its boss battles as its sort of main theme, which and I can kind of imagine for a lot of people might not be enough. They kind of see like there's not very much of a sort of progression system with this game. There's not really much to go on. If you like big boss battles, this game, it's clearly for you. And I personally like it, but I understand why people might not like its minimalistic sort of core mechanics. I kind of understand that. It's a very basic game, and you can kind of think like, well, if it's only just boss battles and there's really nothing much else, how much sort of replayability is this game essentially going to have? Like how big is the game? I know personally, I think it's about 4 to 6 hours, as far as I've heard from other people who's played the game. I don't know how long it'll take for us. Because for me, past this point, I've only ever played the first area. Past this point, it's completely blind. I have no idea what the other boss designs are. I don't know how to defeat them, the puzzles you have to get through, how do you get the weaknesses. I have no idea. So yeah, this basically wraps up the first episode. It's basically I wanted to sort of show the game for you in full and kind of give your sort of general opinion what the game is, whether you want to purchase it for yourself, and see if it's your kind of game. I know it is for me. I absolutely love games like little indie games like this with a lot of heart and a lot of soul. No pun intended there. But yeah, I'm really in love with this game. I don't know how much, like I said, I don't know how much replayability it'll have, because I think there's about 24 bosses in total. I might be wrong. I'm not too sure about that, but I know there's not too many. So it basically, the length of this game is based entirely on how long it takes you to defeat these bosses, because there's nothing else in the game, you know. So, but yeah, here's the end of the first area. This is essentially the elevator to the next one, and I'm just gonna pause it here, and we'll go up the elevator in the next episode. But yeah, I'll just wrap it up here. So past this point, basically, is completely blind for me. Like, as I mentioned, I have no idea what I'm getting in for now. And it's sort of going to have more of a Let's Play kind of feel to this, you know, the rest of the series, which, you're free to watch. But I don't mind if you just watch this first episode, just to kind of give you initial thoughts on the game. But yeah, that kind of wraps up everything. So, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to leave a like in the comment section down below. It means a hell of a lot to me. You have no idea, guys. This is one of my very first playthroughs, actually, and I found it very difficult to kind of keep up the commentary and sort of be interesting. I don't know if I was interesting, but yeah, I mean, if you liked it, thank you very much. If you don't, you know, I don't mind. Any sort of common criticism's fine. But other than that, yeah, if you want to see more of these videos in the future, and I will be covering more of this game. I basically want to be covering the entire game, so I will get to the end eventually. So yeah, if you want to see the rest of the game, please feel free to subscribe. It'll mean a hell of a lot to me. And I'll leave you with that. I will see you guys next time. Let's go to the next area.